Baxter Montgomery, MD, FACC. I'm a cardiologist, and I went to a 100% plant-based diet somewhere around 2004, 2003, 2004. My introduction to the plant-based diet was a little bit gradual. I often think of it as an evolution, if you will. I started my practice back in 1997. Immediately after training, I started my practice and hung my shingle up. I was a busy cardiologist and cardiac electrophysiologist. I saw patients here in Houston, Texas. I worked within and around the world's largest medical center, the Texas Medical Center. And I had privileges at about 15, 16 hospitals. I worked, day and night, was on an emergency room call at multiple hospitals at a given time. And my practice grew. I had a great time. I was managing, some of the most ill patients with cardiovascular disease. However, in the back of my mind, number one, I had a longing or a desire to work in the area of wellness. Now, this desire started in my cardiology training. I didn't know exactly what that was at the time, but that was one thing I realized. And then the other thing is I started noticing that despite all the advanced medical therapies and technological therapies we had, my patients were getting sicker over time. This is something that you can oversee when you're in training because you're on one rotation versus another, but when you're in private practice like I was, my patients became, almost family members. I saw them, month after month, year after year. And so I got to look at how they progressed over time. And in relatively short order, I noticed my patients were getting sicker despite all the medications and the advanced technology we had. So with this underlying desire and interest in wellness, and then this, obvious evidence of patients not really getting better, I had the natural tendency to start to read medical journals, but not just medical journals, but read about medical health information outside the standard medical journals. I read the lay press, and I started looking into natural cures of things, and I came across a number of things, various supplements and herbs, but one common denominator of all of these so-called natural cures was a healthy diet. And the common denominator of a healthy diet was a plant-based diet. So that was something that, stuck out in my independent investigation. Fast forward to cut through a lot of the details. It was one day I found out about a raw vegan chef crash course over the weekend. I signed up and took the course. I don't remember why I did it, but I did it. And during that crash course, I obtained a lot of resources on eating a plant-based diet. And one of those resources was a local individual here in Houston named John Rose. He was known at that time, and I think even to this time, for coaching individuals through raw juice feasts. So I went and met with him, and we talked for about 5 hours about food. He seemed to know everything about food. So I signed up and took his course, and I went on a 33-day raw juice feast. That was my introduction to vegan eating. So my first vegan diet was 30 days of cold pressed juice without anything to chew. And I felt amazing. First of all, the first week was a little rough. I had, lots of detox reactions and the like. And he coached me through that and explained what they were and so on. So that was my introduction to a plant-based diet. I noticed how great I felt, and I started to apply it with some of my patients. Now, I didn't put them on juice feasts, but I put them on salads and things. I did have one person on the juice feast. I remember her. She was a lady in her 60s, mid-60s, and she had come to the office after being discharged from the hospital. She had already had 4-vessel bypass. She had already had multiple stents after the bypass. She already had, she had a history of diabetes, was in a wheelchair, had arthritis, was on oxygen. So her husband brought her in. She was on 21 medication, which was definitely another problem that she had. So I put her on 10 days of raw juice, and in 10 days she came back, no oxygen. I had been able to wean her off some medication by phone calls. She was walking, talking, laughing, feeling much, much better. So I saw result after result like this. And so putting patients on a raw plant-based diet, 7-day intervals with close follow-up, I saw amazing things, and this is what led me to this day.
What is cardiac electrophysiology?
Yeah, cardiac electrophysiology is a subspecialty of cardiology. So you think of cardiology as a subspecialty of internal medicine, and then cardiac electrophysiology is a subspecialty. So we deal with electrical disorders of the heart. So one way to think about it is if you're building a house, you have a plumber and an electrician. So you have the heart, you have the plumbers who put stents and do angioplasty, put stents in the arteries, i.e. the plumbing. And you have the electrical doctors, electrophysiologists who deal with electrical circuitry. So for instance, if someone has an arrhythmia, like we call it supraventricular tachycardia, we will go and put electrical catheters in the heart, and we'll map out the electrical pathways and make a diagnosis of what the electrical pathway is. And if it's a treatable one, we can put a special catheter and burn the abnormal pathway and cure arrhythmia. So I did that for many years. We were able to ablate VT and SVT, and I was ablating atrial fibrillation and atrial flutter and those things. We also implant devices to treat life-threatening arrhythmias such as implantable defibrillators. Of course, we implant pacemakers as well. So we deal primarily with electrical abnormalities of the heart. In my situation, I dealt with both electrical and also the general structural aspect in terms of dealing with heart failure. I did coronary angiograms and the like, and so I did a variety of those things.
Neil Bernard says, if everyone followed your visionary advice, it could revolutionize the health of the planet. How has your views on lifestyle behavior for optimum health span changed over the years?
It's changed because, and I think I said has changed and continue to change. When I started treating patients with an aggressive plant-based diet, the first obvious observation was that this intervention was extremely powerful. My situation is somewhat unique because I'm a cardiologist. I'm not practicing, as I tell people, I'm not off in the sticks practicing, cardiology. My cardiovascular center and wellness center is juxtaposed to the world's largest medical center. We have 3 heart transplant centers in walking distance. So the comparison I have is the comparison with natural plant-based to the absolute best, essentially absolute best that standard allopathic medicine has to offer. So in essence, the first lesson I learned was that this intervention of natural plant-based food is very powerful in the context of comparing it to the best you have. The example I had given earlier, the patient she had already had bypass, stents, was on all the medication she could take for heart failure and diabetes and the like. So she was being treated with the best that allopathic medicine have. And when I just put her on a simple raw juice feeds for 10 days, it improved her health in an amazing way, far greater than the best of the standard treatment. So, that was the kind of comparison I was getting on a regular basis. So it wasn't as though, I saw somebody who, they were too far away, they couldn't get bypass, they couldn't get stents, they couldn't get that, so the only thing they had was my plant-based diet. No. I saw people who had already undergone those treatments had failed, and this was a rescue treatment. So that's one. 2, over time, I don't recognize that this was, powerful in the context of this, but it became more and more obvious that it was superior. I mean, first, I should have known that off the bat, but again, I was indoctrinated or heavily trained in this area, so the first obvious thing, even though it was obvious that it was greater, is that it was, equal to or strong as. But then over the years of treating patient after patient, over time, I saw that this is really far more powerful than this. My thinking has gotten to the point that the optimal nutrition, among other things, of course, is really the foundation of optimal health. It's the foundation of optimal health, not only from the standpoint of preventing the need of this, but I've seen many patients over the years who come in the throes of heart attack, in the throes of acute coronary syndrome or congestive heart failure or other acute events. And yes, we use the allopathic approach to stabilize them, but I found that the raw detox nutritional approach is extremely effective in stabilizing them. In some cases, when patients are too sick to get surgery, too sick to get a stent, too sick to get allopathic treatment, too sick for more medication, their liver's failing, the only thing they have is a raw nutritional detox. Over the years, my thinking has evolved to the point that not only is this superior to this, but this has a greater impact. And in my eyes, the many of the aspects of allopathic medicine is only needed if somebody's not willing to do this. So the necessity of this has diminished to the point where it's only needed if you're going to be a race car driver. And so, okay, man, and you're in the Indy 500. And so you have an option, to drive the race car or drive the bicycle. For only the people who are refused to drive the race car will the bicycle be of any benefit to them. And even then, they're guaranteed to lose the race. So this is the race car. This is the optimal, intervention for your health, not only from the standpoint of preventing, but even if you're acutely ill, if you're in the throes of cancer, throes of arthritis, throes of diabetes, throes of heart disease, this is the definitive treatment. And that's really where my thought process evolved.
Is that where Beyond the Script comes from?
Yeah, Beyond the Script. So that tagline, one of the marketing companies I work with, as they understood how we practice, we take people beyond the prescription of pharmaceuticals, beyond the prescriptions of surgeries, beyond the prescription of medical procedures, beyond the prescription of hospitalization. We, as a doctor, I've prescribed many of these treatments. I've prescribed medications. I've prescribed by writing orders that someone go to the hospital. I prescribe that they have a surgery by referring them for surgery. I prescribe to have a medical procedures by clearing it. And so you want to go beyond those prescriptions and go to something that's going to be truly healing and truly reversing. So, and beyond implies something that's greater than, above and beyond. So going beyond the script is that we need to go beyond this. That's a shortcoming. You have to go beyond that, and that's natural living, natural nutrition, and the like.
The Ornish program is like this non-invasive Medicare-funded program. Do you have something that's non-invasive and Medicare-funded?
We have a program that, we have numerous programs. Because we are a medical practice and we take Medicare and other insurances, when a patient comes to see us, they are able to use the insurance, whether it's Medicare or one of the private insurances, and that brings them into the door. And they can sit across from me and one of my clinical staff, and we can educate them on lifestyle and the like. So at its very core, our program is accepted by Medicare and other insurances. Now, there are components of what we do that requires a personal investment. For instance, we have a restaurant and nutrition center on site. We provide meal plans and other nutrition plans. We have online coaching programs. We have online support groups as part of our online community. And so we have programs that are scalable to where we can, and not only can, but do work with individuals or patients around the world. And we're able to do that to various degrees. Our meal plan program, for instance, we ship detox meals across the country for patients who are trying to reverse acute illnesses. We have coaching programs, and we interact with those patients across the globe, inside and outside the United States. So we have many programs that require personal investment, but we also have programs that also are covered by medical insurance from the standpoint of the codes that we use. Patients come to get our sauna therapies. Well, they have to have a medical evaluation because of their illness. We have to, evaluate their blood pressures and adjust. So when they get sauna therapy, we charge them for the medical visit in the context of that. So yes, our programs many of our programs are covered by insurance with an associated personal investment.
How many of your patients that you see, or people that come to this door, essentially are here because of lifestyle behaviors? And how much of that is nutrition related?
That's a great question. Our population certainly is very skewed right now. I haven't done recent statistics. I would guess about 90% if I just have to think about it, because many people hear about us by that means. It could be as low as 80%, but I would say the vast majority easily, 80 to 90%.
And how much of that is nutrition related versus like exercise, sleep, stress, things like that?
Most of that's nutrition related. Most people hear about us through nutrition. And so the nutrition related, of those 80 to 90% people who are here for lifestyle, I would say about 100% is for nutrition. Now they know they have to make other lifestyle changes, for instance. So they want to exercise, and many of them are exercising. But they know that when they come here, they want to be put on a nutrition plan. And one thing we have, or among the things, we brought together a number of integrated care plans. So we have a basic integrated care program, in which case the person comes in and they have, of course, clinical access to us, but we also have them on for a certain dollar amount, they get a food coupon, they get access to our trainers, which we have on standby, and we have exercise classes, and they have access to online Inner Circle program at a discount rate. So that integrated care program brings in multiple modalities of education and intervention from a health standpoint. It gives them access to our nutrition center with discounts on everything that they order. So these are the things that we provide. At the greater level, we have what's called Heart and Soul of a Champion program, which is a 4 to 6 week intervention where they come and they'll stay in town if they don't live here. And they are on a rigorous program. They're in the office 3 to 5 days a week. They're getting sauna, they're getting ECP therapy, they're working out 3 to 4 days a week with a trainer. They're on a time-restricted raw diet on our meal plan. So that's a very comprehensive package deal that we have that uses a combination of insurance and personal investment.
With somebody as so busy as you, do you ever access or utilize like health coaches to kind of bridge the gap and help people implement these lifestyle changing behaviors?
Yeah, despite how busy I look, we actually have a large team of people here. We have 2 mid-levels and a cardiac nurse. I've trained them in educating individuals on nutrition and detox. We have an integrated care coordinator who's remote. She lives in Boston, but she works with our wellness and online team on a regular basis. So she's doing a good job at that. And we have a myriad of other people that work with us on social media. We have a number of chefs who work with us in terms of the culinary side and educating people. So we have a team of about 35 employees and a number of contract people that work within our institution as we grow to get the message out to help people learn. So even though I'm busy, I'm not a lone ranger, and I'm working with the benefit of having a very strong staff that's doing a great job, and we hope to continue to grow the operations as time allows.
If somebody wanted to become a health coach and kind of help bridge the gap, is there any kind of program out there they could probably get into that's practical for somebody to not have to be a doctor per se, or get some very expensive and elaborate training? Is there like a certificate out there that you could recommend?
Yeah, I know about the T. Colin Campbell Foundation. They certify people in the T. Colin Campbell Foundation for Nutrition. That's a good program. I think PCRM has a program.
Food for Life?
Food for Life, yes, that program. And there may be others, but eventually we plan to have a program probably in the next 2 to 3 years. We're putting together our interventions and focusing on that and our research now. But yes, those are 2 programs I know about.
I have a friend who he was going to have to get bypass surgery, and the day before the procedure, he consulted with Esselstyn at the Cleveland Clinic, and Esselstyn essentially talked him out of it, and he went plant-based. And over the last 10 years, he's been doing amazing. His heart was swollen, it shrunk down back to normal size, I guess. I hope I'm saying that right. His leaky valves are no longer leaky, but he still had to get a stent, and it was due to maybe a genetic lipo(a). How much of this is within our control? And I guess it's worth mentioning that eating this way isn't a panacea.
Well, there are a lot of aspects that lead to poor health. That's number one. Let's say theoretically if you ate the perfect diet. I'm just going to put air quotes around that, and we'll put that aside and talk about what the perfect diet is in a minute. But let's say you ate the perfect diet. There are other aspects of life, your family relationship, make sure you're sleeping well, and so on and so forth. So there are many aspects to an ideal life, from the standpoint of spiritual aspects and intellectual. What are you reading? Who are you hanging around with, and so on. That's going to potentiate your overall well-being. I mean, if you ate the ideal diet, but you're riding motorcycles and no helmet, and you're doing daredevil willies and going off cliffs, then you're going to increase your chance of having a problem that way. So there are other aspects to healthy living, etc. Now, having said that, optimal nutrition is a core lifestyle component. The individual you mentioned, although I don't know the details, the questions that come to mind is that, yes, he's on a plant-based diet, but, is it an ideal diet? I mean, just because someone's eating plant-based doesn't mean they're eating the ideal diet. You can have a lot of processed plant-based foods, and if you're eating mostly foods that are cooked or mostly foods that are microwaved, whatever the case is, so those foods can be problematic too. And if he's starting off from a standpoint of having advanced disease, you can make a lot of progress without going 100% plant-based, but you have to maintain that. Now, that other example, you said, well, he had to have a stent. Well, we knew he already had coronary disease and his heart got better on a plant-based diet. He may not have full regression of those arteries. So maybe he deviated from diet once and had some symptoms and went in for a procedure, and it was found to have, one lesion that needed stenting. So the details of that, are unknown, so it's hard to really comment on it. But with that example, I wouldn't say that one, the quote-unquote ideal diet failed him because, even though it was on plant-based, we don't know his diet was ideal. And two, the fact that he needed a stent or received a stent, it doesn't say that the diet failed because, we knew he had coronary disease and we don't know the circumstance of him needing the stent. So, those are the things that I look at. But yes, diet is not a panacea, but it's a very, very important component of a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. So what about this lipo(a) though? Is that beyond our control?
Yeah, LP(a) is an atherogenic molecule. It's the way to think of it is molecularly structurally similar to LDL particles. It just potentiates clot formation, thrombosis. And in our studies, we showed a 16% reduction in LP(a) in just 4 weeks with a raw plant-based diet. Kim Williams and Dr. Terry Mason in their study, they showed a 10% reduction in LPA in about 5 or 6 weeks. Now they had a cooked food diet, so a raw diet is going to give you these changes to a greater extent, much faster. But we know that plant-based nutrition consumption can reduce LP(a), and so that's evidence of that. And we see it all the time clinically.
I've had a few people say, they're eating vegan. Of course, like you said, we don't really know what they're eating, but maybe their triglycerides get a little high, and I've heard a few people, comment on triglycerides.
Yeah, they may be consuming a lot of processed sugars in their vegan food, and so that's, if they're consuming that, then they may need to make changes. We allow for raw smoothies and things, but sometimes if someone has insulin resistance that's pretty significant, depending on how they respond to a lot of the raw smoothies or processed carbohydrates, we may have to make a reduction in it. And if someone's not on a 100% raw diet, they may be consuming a lot of carbohydrates that are processed. So they may be consuming breads and the like, and so their triglycerides may go up even there. So you have to look at the nuances of what your diet is. Once you go on plant-based, then you have to get into some of the details of what you're eating and how it's prepared.
What about exercise, though? Doesn't that affect triglycerides, too?
Yeah, exercise is very important. It affects triglycerides and has other important components, some of which we know and many that we do not know. So exercise is very beneficial in terms of cholesterol improvement.
And to what extent does one need to exercise? Is walking sufficient, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, walking is always sufficient because it's a good exercise. There are a lot of exercise enthusiasts, a lot of exercise people online who really strongly promote walking, walking long distances and the like. Intense exercise, strength training has benefits. So high intensity interval training has a lot of benefits. So I think there's a place for both. I mean, there's a place for walking and high intense interval training. So if you say, okay, in the course of a week, I may go on 2 or 3 long walks in that course of a week, and I may go through 2 or 3 episodes, maybe 4 episodes of a high intense exercise regimen. Maybe it's 30, 45 minutes to, say 30 minutes to an hour, where I'm doing interval training, where I'm doing, say, burpees and take a break, and running up hills and taking a break. So those high intensity training periods are beneficial. And so those are the things that I think work. But exercise is good, walking is good, And I think it works well with high intense interval training.
Now, some of my friends are like, they don't really want to mess with their diet. They start getting overweight, and all they want to do is exercise away that weight. But me, I'm like, I feel like that's dangerous. I feel like maybe nutrition should come first. Does it really matter which comes first?
Well, I think nutrition should come first. There are a lot of people who, as you said, want to exercise. I think of it this way: if someone were to, and we know cyanide's poison, so let's say hypothetically, 6 drops of cyanide would kill you. So then every morning you just only take, 2 or 3 drops of cyanide in your coffee every morning, your tea or whatever you drink morning, but your water. So, okay, 3 drops won't kill you, 6 will kill you. You have to count the drops of cyanide very carefully. You don't want to, miss, oh, did I put 3 in there? Or did I put any? And I'm going to put another 3. Oh, maybe I got the 6. I'm going to die. So you got to count the cyanide very carefully. That's 1. 2, even 3 drops of cyanide every day, even though it doesn't kill you that day, if you do it over time, it's going to have a progressive effect to where it's going to lead to your illness and then eventually demise. Now, I'll ask you, you put 2 or 3 drops of cyanide in your water in the morning or tea or juice, how far do you have to run the cyanide off? It's a silly question because, cyanide is low in calories and low in carbs, but it's a poison. So it's really the biochemistry of the food that you're putting in that's the problem. It's not the fact that they have high calories or high fat or high carbs. It's the biochemistry. Yeah, the high calories can be a problem or high carbs or whatever, but the biochemistry of the food, the adverse biochemical effects that the food has on the body, in and of itself is a problem. That part, even though you can run off the calories and run off, the effects of the fat maybe, but there's the biochemical effects of the fat, the biochemical effects of the processed carbohydrates that you can't run off. So that's the part of nutrition which is important. The toxic effect, the adverse biochemical effects, and the like.
Statistically, it's been said that there's more African Americans that are going plant-based than any other race. Why do you think that is?
I don't know the answer to that question. I do know here in Houston, a disproportionate number of the plant-based restaurants are owned by Black Americans. I see it happening more. Why? I don't have an answer as to why. It's something that's probably, more closely rooted to who we are, what we've done historically, and from antiquity. That may be an answer. It may be closely related to, our, genetic roots than we really realize. But the point is that, yes, I have read that. I haven't looked at the data myself, but I have read that. I'm aware of that. So certainly here in Houston, I see that to be the case from the business ownership standpoint.
I've also heard things like, in utero, there's evidence that heart disease begins in utero, maybe even as far back as their grandmother.
I've been made aware of evidence, data showing imaging studies showing vascular atherosclerosis and fetuses. My thinking is that it's ideal to start the child on a plant-based diet from the point of conception or preconception, if you will. So, if I were to advise a couple who were saying, well, we're planning to have a baby, we want to, start trying, I would say start on a raw detox now, go 100% plant-based, and then conceive. That would be my recommendation to that couple, knowing what I know now and thinking. So you want every aspect of your sperm and ovaries to be originating from plant-based sources, some optimal nutritional sources, I'll put it that way, not just plant-based, and then conceive and give your future baby a very good chance of optimal health.
Now, there's a lot of fad diets I'm sure you're aware of out there that are meat-based. How much of this is just an elimination on either end? So I don't like to pit the best side against the worst of the other. Is it just that people are doing better on a plant-based diet because they're eliminating maybe processed foods, and they could have just as well optimized their health span, eliminating those processed foods and eating like the cleanest meat possible?
Yeah, my take on is this elimination of bad foods, of processed foods. So if you take away, potato chips and Cheetos, those sort of things, you're gonna get some benefit out of that, and a lot of soft drinks and the like. So yes, and the evidence I've been made aware of in those diets, the high animal protein diets, or primarily meat diets, meat and fat diets, are essentially anecdotal, and so you get situations where individuals will feel better, they'll lose weight and have benefit in that regard. But this evidence, from my standpoint, is really anecdotal and short-lived. So that's why it's hard to find long studies where you have individuals who benefit from it. Also, from my perspective, I see patients who, are really on the edge. I mean, I'm talking about I've detoxed patients in the ICU, with, green plant foods and the like. I've had patients on hospitals. We detox and improve on raw plant food. So, I haven't tried it, of course, and I know I won't, but I don't think these people would do well on a high carnivore diet because they're already on carnivorous foods and they're doing poorly. So in the sickest of patients, a raw plant-based diet has been shown to be beneficial. I don't see any data showing these high meat diets being beneficial in these very sick patients. So you go back to patients who are not as sick, who are stable. If they remove processed carbohydrates and processed sugars and the like, they're going to get some benefit. It doesn't mean that diet is optimal. It's just that they're getting benefit from what they've removed.
So I like to look at the totality of evidence. What leading health organizations are in support of what you're saying about eating plants exclusively?
So let me put it this way. I'm not aware of any organization that's not in support of it. Okay? So even though, American Dietetic Association came out and said that, a healthy plant-based diet is beneficial at every, stage of life, including in pregnancy. So there's no organization that I'm aware of who's against eating a plant-based diet. In fact, you could argue that the sine qua non of a healthy diet is plant foods, because even the high meat diets, if you want to look at the old Atkins diet or the current high meat diets, was a carnivore diet, so they all have some form of plant foods in them. They may say remove carbohydrates, but they have some form of plant foods. So, any healthy diet has, plant foods, whether it's plant foods only or plant foods in addition to something else. Mediterranean diet is another diet that comes to mind. So I think that the sine qua non of a healthy diet are plant foods. So you can argue that, now there's no institution that, advocates against a plant-based diet, plant consumption diet, but even the proponents of other diets, so-called fat diets, whether it's keto or carnivore or whatever, even they are proponents of eating plant foods because their diets consist of some plant foods.
Well, the carnivore is supposedly no plant foods.
Supposedly, but I've listened to some of the talks, and again, I haven't delved into it 100%, but I think there's some plants that are eaten, even in the carnivore diet, that's allowed, I'll say that much. But again, I haven't studied it in detail, so maybe, you probably have more information on it than I, so that's a new diet, but it's hard to imagine. And even in that situation, if you're eating only, animal foods, the animals you can argue theoretically it's not a completely plant-free diet because the animals you've eaten have either eaten plants or eaten animals or eaten plants. So if you're eating a cow, you're getting your plant second hand because the nutrients of that cow has come from a plant. So even then, you say the sine qua non are plant foods because the animals you eat have to eat plants.
And I like to say that, therefore, that animal that they're eating is a processed food because,
Yeah. So it gets that level. I mean, even you talk about Eskimos who eat, whales and all, and some people argue that they eat the guts and the algae that's in the guts of the whales is where their form of plant food. So,
is there anything out there at all evidencing that we need to eat animals at all?
I'm not aware of anything that said we have to eat animals. I mean, I would imagine if so someone can come up with some scenario where you're around and you're in the frozen areas or somewhere and there's no plant foods growing or whatever.
Well, I mean, to qualify further, like when there's plant options available of the variety that we have access to and for optimal health span.
No, I'm not aware of that for optimal health span, and certainly not in my clinical situation where I'm seeing patients who are coming in with advanced illnesses. They're already eating, diets that are fairly high in animal protein, and they get better when we flip the switch.
How can someone go raw, and what raw foods can they replace cooked foods with? Like, can athletes do this as well?
Yes, we actually, in our docu-series, Heart and Soul of a Champion, brought some retired athletes and put in our program. and they were on a raw diet, time restricted eating for about 5 or 6 weeks, and they did quite well. How does one go into a raw diet? It's you just have to mark your calendar and get started. So what does a raw diet consist of? Of course, fresh fruit, fresh greens, in the form of salads. You can do smoothies or cold pressed juices as we recommend. But there's also gourmet raw foods where you don't heat foods above, say, 120, 130 degrees, and you can create foods with textures like bread or wraps. And that gives you a variety of the raw foods that you're eating. And so the raw diet can then be expanded to satisfy the palate beyond just, lettuce and tomatoes and water.
Well, I did a little tour the other day when you were busy working of your facility, and I'll be happy to show that in the video as well. I wonder, though, when I've interviewed people that are raw, at first I was like, how do you replace beans and grains? Essentially, you just sprout them, right?
Yeah, you can sprout beans and sprout grains and flavor them, season them and flavor them and eat them in that format. So you can. Yeah. We have a sprouted wild rice, for instance, that we use, and we season it, and it goes very well. We have a meatloaf that's made out of seeds and walnuts, and we make a gravy that's delicious. And so, there are things that you can do to really, help expand your palate.
Yeah, Joel Furman, right? So he recommends the G bombs, and I wonder, what about mushrooms? Because those are really powerful.
Yeah, we have marinated mushrooms. We consume mushrooms raw.
Because some people say they need to be cooked a little bit, right?
I've heard that. I've read that. I would like to see studies that support that. But some people say that. I've heard that. But I haven't seen studies showing that people who eat raw mushrooms, get sicker and die compared to those who eat cooked. I mean, not that we can study everything, but you always want to try to validate as much as you can, especially making certain claims like that.
Do you get in any fermenting?
We get some fermented vegetables. We have a fermented beverage called kvass, beet kvass. So we have a number of fermented beverages.
Now, as far as fermented, could there potentially be some B12 in that?
Theoretically. So B12 essentially relies on a healthy gut flora. We live in a society that's very sanitized, and so we tend to have a propensity for B12 deficiency. It's not because we're eating plants or not eating plants. Or not eating animals rather, but we have a propensity for B12 deficiency just due to a poor gut flora, and maybe our soils are not rich in microbes or the like.
Yeah. Is eating this way affordable, and how can food deserts take advantage of this?
Yeah, I think eating this way is affordable. I think one has to be rich in the mindset of knowing, when I say rich in the mindset, you have to have the mindset knowing that this is important. That's one. Two, being rich in the mindset, you have to be aware of the fact that, hey, I'm going to make whatever sacrifice I need to make to consume this way. So if you have the determination, the knowledge and determination to consume a plant-based diet 100%, then I think you have all the resources that you need, because those two primary resources, the knowledge that you need to do it and the determination to do it, will make you resourceful in other ways, the way you can overcome your lack of resources to do what you need to do.
And what initiatives are you aware of to combat food deserts?
I'm not aware of any specific initiatives. I just hadn't had the time to look them up. I've heard of different initiatives. I do locally here in the Houston area know of organizations who are helping train people how to grow their own food or the like. And the food deserts, that phrase rather, is interesting because I look at our broad community, which is a food desert. I go to some cities, and they're large cities, and there are lots of wonderful restaurants and all, and it's hard to find raw plant-based food or plant-based food. And so I said, well, heck, that's a food desert to me. So food desert, I understand what's meant by the phrase, and low socioeconomic status communities where the grocery stores are too far away and it's only access to convenience stores. I understand that, but there are food deserts beyond that, standard definition that I see as well.
Do you think the benefits outweigh the risks of non-organic when organic isn't affordable?
That's a great question. I guess, and what I've always said, and I'll continue to hold by that, get what you can afford. So if you're starting off with something that's not organic, start with that. and then go to organic as soon as you can. But sustainably grown. I mean, having an organic label, you may have something that's sustainably grown that's maybe better than something that's labeled organic. You know, your neighbor grows something in their backyard, and the yard doesn't get sprayed and hadn't been sprayed in, say, decades or centuries or whatever. Then you may have something that's grown in the backyard. They don't get the organic label because, it costs money. So something sustainably grown may be as good as or better than something that's organic.
How do you deal with people who listen to their body and claim they feel good, yet they're not living this way for optimal health span?
Well, I mean, you should listen to your body, but also realize that, problems, health issues can be unrecognized. They're not always sensed. So, it's important to listen to your body, but it's also important to understand, well, what should I be doing? If you're driving a car that has no oil in it, and you know that, so I'm just going to listen to the engine and see if it starts to rattle and say, okay, that's fine, but just get the oil in and make sure you're not having to listen to your body, listen to your engine to start rattling. I'm going to listen to my body until it starts breaking down and getting pain, and then I'm going to do something about it.
Is there anything that can be done more to properly educate physicians on the power of nutrition and helping their patients implement this?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. So, I think just continued exposure in the clinical practice. I've given grand rounds before different departments here in the medical center discussing our data, discussing the benefits of a plant-based diet. I think more of that needs to happen. Plant-based nutrition education in the medical school training would be good. There's more that needs to be done for sure, and what actually can work most effectively, I'm not certain.
And would you say the American College of Lifestyle Medicine would be like the best resource for physicians?
I think they'd be a great resource. Their organization, they promote healthy living principles and plant-based nutrition. So yeah, I think American College of Lifestyle Medicine would be an excellent organization.
And then is there anything to the idea that when we eat an animal, we're consuming their fear?
I read a lot about that and heard a lot of talk about it. And, the catecholamines that go up in their blood and that type of thing get into our bloodstream when we consume the animal flesh. So it's certainly possible physiologically, and also maybe to a certain spiritual extent that may be possible as well.
And then can somebody be heartbroken and not do as well as somebody who's not heartbroken?
Yeah, the psyche of the patient or the individual who's ill helps a lot. So if you or in a situation where you're anxious or you're worried or you're heartbroken, that impairs your immune system and may predispose you to clot formation or acute coronary events or the like. So somebody who's worried, depressed, anxious, have those emotional issues are at a disadvantage.
And then to kind of wrap this up, do you have a quote you'd like to share?
Yes, I mean, oftentimes people say that, my genetics are such that I'm predisposed to this condition or that condition. And as I've written in my book, families pass down illnesses more effectively through recipes than through genes.
And what's the name of your book?
The Food Prescription for Better Health. It can be found on Amazon or on our website, montgomeryheart.com.
Excellent. And do you have any other resources you want to get out there real quick?
Yes, we have an upcoming event, events.montgomeryheart.com, where you can go to that site and select gala. If you're in the Houston area, you want to come by, you can register RSVP and get tickets. You're also welcome to log in for free remotely, so you can see it, and we'll have a hostess on camera working with you and showing you everything that's happening. But it's going to be a great gala. We'll have Dr. Pam Popper, Dr. Kim Williams, we'll have John Sally. We will have David Carter coming, Dr. Terry Mason will be there. I'll be there. Dr. Celeste Palmer will be there from Fresh Natural Live. And a number of other healthcare providers. And there'll be 4 keynote presentations and a panel session. And we'll also show Heart and Soul of a Champion. And so you'll be able to see that for the first time. And we'll also make it available for you to pre-order as well.
Now, is that a documentary?
That's a docu-series. So season 1 is 8 episodes, and there will be season 2, 3, and 4, and so forth.
And this is your baby?
This is our baby. Essentially, the purpose of the docu-series is the following. It's really to bring a film crew into our operations and follow patient after patient after patient as they go through their health journeys using our intervention. And everyone's going to have a different experience, a different take on it. And we want to normalize this natural approach to not only preventing chronic illness, but reversing chronic illness. We want to normalize it in the hearts and minds of the everyday individual. So as people see these interventions going on a regular basis, hopefully they'll start to make changes in their lives.
And is that gala thing going to be every year for sure?
It's going to be, but it's an annual event that we plan to have and showcase what we're doing and all the updates.
And then the docuseries, where's that going to be available?
It should be available, don't quote me on this. We're looking at Amazon, and we don't have all the locations, Amazon and YouTube, but those are two areas we're looking at, and among others.
Okay, and then they could just look on your website.
Look on our website. You'll see, if you go to MontgomeryHeart.com, you'll see a link to the docuseries, as well as if you come to our event, events.montgomeryheart.com, you'll be able to see links to it once you come to the event or you register. We'll certainly share that information with you.
Anything that we didn't cover that you would like to get out there real quick, other than what?
I think we've covered pretty much everything. I mean, we're here in Houston, MontgomeryHeart.com. And if any of you have any issues or problems you want to partake in the service we have, go to our website. Look at what we have on the website. There's a lot of educational material. If you want to join our online community, rather, you can go to MontgomeryHeart.com/journey. That takes you to where you can register for our online community, and there's support groups and lots of educational materials. On the online community, I'm there giving grand rounds on a regular basis. We bring in excellent speakers from around the world who come in and they talk just to our community, not to, we don't put those on social media. We may put snippets of them on social media, but the whole thing is there. Plus you get to come on as a member and ask direct questions to these experts. So it's an excellent value and an excellent way to expand your knowledge. And of course, you can always go on to our online coaching programs or make an appointment and come to Houston. So we're accessible by many different means. And
you didn't mention, what kind of foods do you like to eat, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
To breakfast, I'll have like a salad or a fruit. Like I typically try to wait until say 10 o'clock or later, usually around 11 before I have my first meal. But we're in mango season, or still in mango season, so I may have mangoes, I may have a salad or something like that. Sometimes I'll have a sprouted wild rice. We have raw broccoli salad, so I eat a lot out of our restaurant. So either fruits or salad or a sprouted grain or something like that.
That's it?
That's pretty much it. I'll drink a lot of water or cold pressed juice. We have a green water. We have raw breads. I made a raw meatloaf sandwich using our raw vegan rye bread, which is delicious. We have pizza. We have a naan bread that we use to make pizza with. And so we have a lot of delicious gourmet things. We have an enchilada pie we have that's delicious.
What about dinner?
Yeah, the enchilada pie, the meatloafs, those are things I may have for the dinner.
So do you do any intermittent fasting?
Well, typically, so the times I'll eat just between 11 and 4. So I'll do that for a certain period of time. Then I'll relax it to, say 10 and 6 or 10 and 5. But I try to eat within a narrow window. Sometimes I, break that if I'm out and about. But for the most part, say 10 and 6 on a regular basis, 10 and 6, 10 and 5. And if I'm doing a detox, I'll tighten it up to 11 and 4. Sometimes even tighter.
Awesome. Now, do you think the intermittent fasting's heart healthy?
Yes, I call it time restricted eating, intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting in my book is where you go like within a 7-day period of time, you'll have 24, 36, 48 hours or 72 hours where you're not eating at all, just drinking water. So you have a greater than 24-hour period of fasting. The time restricted eating, you can call it intermittent fasting too, because you're just creating your fasting window. If you use that definition there, then everybody intermittently fasts, because if you sleep for 4-6 hours, then you're fasting during that time period. So, so we all intermittently fast, on a normal basis, if you don't want to say it that way.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time. I know you're busy, and I squeezed in as many questions as I could. and best wishes in all your endeavors.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. It's always good to sit down and kind of share my thoughts, and it actually forces me to sort of reflect on these things. So these questions are always beneficial and helpful.
Hi everyone, welcome to Garden Kitchen. My name's Alex, I'm the kitchen lead and manager here. I'm gonna give you a quick little tour. So starting over on this side, we've got a couple of tables here for restaurant space. We're going through some construction and expansion, so over time we're gonna get more and more come in and sit down and have a great meal. All over this side, we've got our grocery area. So we've got everything from refrigerated items, dressings, milks, dips and spreads. We've also got some frozen stuff, some really great items. We've got these spoonable smoothies. We've got our own homemade desserts, a lot of great stuff. And over here, we've got both dry goods and some more refrigerated items. A couple of things to highlight, V's Liquid Death, incredible. This is my absolute favorite sparkling water. And we were always rolling out new items, new things that we're procuring. Over here, we've got more dry items, a mix of both stuff that we make in-house and stuff that we source from other people. Some of the stuff, this is one of our most popular items, our own breakfast bars. They're made with a bunch of great grains, buckwheat, oats, flax seeds, really delicious. But then we've also got stuff all around from a lot of different vendors. You can take a look through here. And everything here is designed to benefit your health, right? So what we say here is, you eat here, you get better, right? And so whether we're making that in-house or sourcing that from somebody else, we make sure that we're using the best ingredients and everything is catered towards improving people's lives, improving people's health. Going through here, this is our main kitchen. This is where the heart of our operations lies. You'll notice most kitchen restaurants, you'll go in, you'll see a bunch of stoves, a bunch of ovens. Here, everything we do is raw, virtually everything. So we do have one stove. We make a big pot of soup every day. Today we've got cream of broccoli soup, really delicious, one of my favorites. But everything else is raw. And so you'll see we have a lot of food processors, we have a lot of blenders, and we have a lot of fridge and freezer space, but no heating. So that's kind of what we do, and that's gonna be optimal for your health.
How long have you been vegan?
I've been vegan for about going on 4 years. Wasn't raw until I started working here, but I've been trying to eat more raw food, and I've already noticed improvements in my health.
Wow, what made you go vegan?
For me, it was a combination of trying to improve my health, trying to improve what I see happening in the world, animals, environment, all sorts of stuff. So I'll show you, this area is also one of our most important rooms. We've got two of our most tenured people here working on some dehydrated goods. So I mentioned we do raw stuff. We actually do heat some of our items, but to very low temperatures. So we'll heat stuff to 105 degrees, sometimes 125, 135 degrees. And heating stuff to low temperatures preserves enzymes, preserves nutritional benefit. So I mentioned in the front, I showed y'all those breakfast bars. What we do is we take grains, some raisins, some agave, blend them up, and then dehydrate them until they're a beautiful, soft, warm texture.
Is this stuff available online at all? Or
we do. We have a website where you can order and we'll fulfill them directly, so we can ship virtually anything we make. All available on our website.
Awesome.
Here we've got a second prep space, so you'll see a lot of fridge space, some tables as well. We do use a lot of fridge space because we believe in having the most fresh, the freshest produce we can source. So a lot of our produce is locally grown, all of it's organic, and a lot of it sourced directly from farmers markets, directly from the farmers here in Houston.
Where is this located?
We're in South Houston at the corner of West Belfort and 90. Here we've got some storage space. We also have, you'll notice, a lot of dry grains, seeds, nuts. You might have noticed as we passed some boxes that just got delivered that I need to go through and organize. But we do a lot of grains, seeds, nuts in dry bulk. Last area I'll show you is outside. We've got even more storage space outside. Eventually we're gonna build some construction and this will all be inside. But right now we've got 2 units here, a walk-in fridge and a walk-in freezer. You can see even more of our fresh produce. In general, as much as we can, locally sourced, but everything is organic, everything is gonna be great for your health.
Wow, excellent. All right, well thanks for the tour, man.
Thanks so much for coming along with me, y'all.